Hey guys, welcome to lesson 6-4 on writing algebraic expressions. Yeah, algebra. Woo! So this is the beginning of getting you to a point where you can solve word problems. Because word problems don't hand you an equation, word problems give you a situation and you have to write the equation. So we're going to start with our baby steps and we're going to start with algebraic expressions. So we got a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of words to go over. This is going to be 2 pages. First page is going to be jam-packed with information. It's going to take me 2 slides to get through it all. So let's start with, how do you write an algebraic expression? Now remember, we talked about an algebraic expression in yesterday's notes. It's an expression, meaning it has no equal sign, it has math going on, and it has numbers, and it has variables. Now you're going to read words and you're going to translate it, okay? So how to write an algebraic expression. Alright, so number 1. This may sound like the dumbest statement ever, but I gotta be honest with you, most of you don't do this. Read the phrase in English. Sometimes it's a whole word problem. At least 2 times. And you're thinking to yourself, wait a second, how can she say that most of us don't read the problem? You guys don't. You skim the problem. You just look for key things and you start going at it, but you haven't read the whole thing. Sometimes you need to read the context behind what's going on, but you gotta read it through twice. The first time I read it, it's just to get an idea of what's going on. The second time I read it, that's when I start pulling apart pieces and I'm looking for what's my unknown. I'm looking for any numbers and I'm looking for words that tell me whether I'm adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. Okay, second step. We're going to identify the unknown. Identify the unknown. Now, the unknown is not a number and it's not an operation. That means you can kind of take those out of that phrase or sentence that you're reading, and what's left over is what you don't know or what you're solving for. Okay? Now, I'm going to teach you something here. You're going to be using this for years. We cannot have a blank spot. We're not going to do boxes like we used to do in elementary school. We're going to actually start using our variables. And so you are going to be picking a variable. Now, you're going to hear me say this phrase, define the variable. It's define the unknown. Okay? Which you can also take to be the variable. So you get to pick whatever variable you want. Now, I got to be honest with you, there's a couple that are really cruddy. Number 1 is a lowercase l. Looks like the number 1. Number 2, O. Looks like a 0. Don't pick those. Okay? T's can get confused with plus signs. Be wary of those. S's can look like 5s. I'd steer clear. Safe choices, X's and Y's. Go with those. B's, M's, letters that you can't mistake for a different letter. So when I give you this phrase, define the unknown or define the variable, this is what I'm telling you to do. I'm asking you to choose any letter, and you just heard the ones I told you not to choose, to represent the unknown. Because we're going to replace those words that are the unknown with just a letter, okay, to represent the unknown. So that's number 1. 2, you're going to explain in words what the variable represents. In other words, you know those words that you're now replacing with this variable? That's basically what you're going to write down, okay? Now, I still struggle with this with my algebra kids. You need to be specific. Here's my 8th graders going to be learning how to solve word problems that involve ages. So I get a lot of times the kids will give me a variable and say Bob, and then another variable and say Joe. What about Bob? What about Joe? That's not enough of a definition, okay? So just like in English, we define. All right, next, we're going to translate. And that word just means turn into. So we're going to translate the English, so what you just read, into numbers, which isn't hard to translate, they're obvious. Operations, that's what we're going to talk about next. And variables. Okay? So I'm going to go to the next screen because I got a lot to write, but you're still on page 1. You're maybe a third of the page down right now. So what we're going to do is talk about words that mean operations. And we're going to look at words that mean to add, words that mean to divide, words that mean to multiply, words that mean to subtract, okay? So let's start with the basics. I'm just going to put all of them out right now. So we've got addition. We're going to have a column for subtraction words or phrases. We're going to have a column for multiplication. Multiplication, such a long word. And words that mean division. Okay? So, words that mean addition. I'm not going to put in the words add, subtract, multiply, and divide because I think we all pretty much know what they're telling us to do. But I'm going to give you some other words like plus. If you're hearing the word plus, most likely you are going to be adding. Often the word total means to add, but sometimes the word total just means the answer, so you have to be careful. Altogether, that means to add. More than. Now I'm going to put a little asterisk next to more than, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. We've got some, that's the answer to an addition problem, and then we've got added to. That's a 2-word phrase. And then again, I'm going to put a little star next to that guy. And then we've got the word increase. Now, these are not all the words that you might possibly see, but these are fairly typical ones. Okay? Well, let's just write increase. There we go. Increase. All right, let's talk about words that mean subtraction. So subtraction, less than. And again, I'm going to put one of those little asterisks there. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Minus, that's an old-fashioned one. Difference, that's the answer to a division or subtraction problem. Takeaway. Now again, that phrase means different things. Like we take out in Britain, they take away. It's also, hey, what did you take away from this activity? But for us, it means subtraction. Subtracted from, so a pair of words. And again, we're going to star that one. Diminished. That's an interesting one. That's going a little more old-timey, diminished. And then decrease. Okay? So next, let's talk about words that tell us to multiply. And we don't have so many of them. Times is probably one of the most popular one. Product is the answer to a multiplication problem. Of sometimes means to multiply. And then we get into words that tell us not just to multiply, but to multiply by a specific number. So twice and double and they tell you to multiply by 2. And there's other ones. There's ones that tell you to multiply by 3, by 4, okay? All right, let's talk about division last. And division, the answer to a division problem is a quotient. That's a word you'll hear very often. Divided by, I think that one's pretty obvious. Divided by. Split into equal groups. Yeah, that idea of grouping equally. In each group. So that, again, group, dealing with putting together. Per, little teeny word. Ratio is also a division word. You're comparing two numbers. And then we've got divided into. And I'm going to go ahead and put a little star next to him. So at this point, you should be about 2/3 of the way through the page. So let me kind of lessen these. And let's talk about those star words. And these are words that change order. So when you translate, you're basically word for word translation, okay? So when I see a number, I write a number. When I see the operation, I write it down. When I see a known value, I write it down. So it's usually pretty much straightforward, except for these phrases that I've starred. Basically, it's like in Spanish, well, in English, we go, hey, look at that White House. And because we put our adjective in front of the noun that we're describing. But in Spanish, they say it the other way. They say La Casa Blanca, the house white. Okay, but they don't think it means the house white. They're bringing your attention to the object and then they're describing it. Okay, so it's just a different way. So that's what these words tell us, that the value we see in front of them actually, when we write the translation, gets written at the end. Now this I know gets a little confusing, but it's just something you're going to have to practice, because logically, if you have 7 more than a number, that means you started with the number and you have now 7 more than that. Okay, so it's just something you have to get used to. So these phrases are more than, which tells us to add and to switch. And we've got added to, which again is, we're going to switch the order of what's around the words that tell us to add. We've got less than. Oops, I was going to write lesson. Nope, that's not it. Less than. Oops, got off. All right, there you go. Which is subtraction. We've got subtracted from. We've got divided into. So notice we don't have any switcher phrases when it comes to multiplication. So that's our division one. Okay. Now there's another group of words that mean that we're going to use parentheses. And they're a phrase. They're not just a single word. That mean parentheses. You should see what the algebra kids are doing. Like, you guys are starting off kind of nice and sweet, and then it's going to get like ugly. Right? That's how it works. So we have the sum of. So those words together tell you you're going to put in parentheses, and the numbers that you have the sum of 3 and 5, you're going to put parentheses, because usually it's paired with a word like twice. Okay. Then we have the difference of. So there's usually, when there's multiple operations, we're going to need these parentheses, and these words kind of, sorry, let me give a little bit more space, give away where the parentheses are going to go. And then generically, the quantity of. So like the quantity of 6 plus 2. Okay, so they're going to tell you what math it is. And then just put like a mystery. We're not sure. Okay, so let's get to the next page, and we are going to actually do a couple of examples. So unfortunately, we are going to write, but not a ton. So our second page here is lesson 6-4, writing algebraic expressions. And 31, 20, 20. Okay, so the directions are going to say, write each phrase as an algebraic expression. So the first phrase, and again, when you hear this, the assumption is you remember you're going to define your variable. Okay? So number one, $10 is less than the original price. $10 is less than the original price. Now, when I'm writing my expressions, I'm not going to include labels because my labels would be included in my answer if I were to get to one, okay? So I'm going to see if I can identify numbers because they're the simplest. So let's see, $10 right there. That's 10, okay? Oh, we don't need this word. So $10 less than the original price. Then I'm going to look for a phrase, word or phrase that's going to tell me to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. And then I heard that less than. Now, less than's that's funny guy, remember? He's telling me to subtract, but then he's telling me what's on either side of that less than is what's going to get switched around. Now, the original price is the only thing I don't know how to translate. So that means he must be the unknown. So what I do is I pick a variable, and again, I think I explained to you Mr. Cuneo in 8th grade just got X in my brain, and I write the words, the original price. Okay, so now I've got that done, and now I translate. So X is going to come first, our operation, and then our number. Why did we switch it around? Because of the less than. It's saying that we had the original price, but now we're taking $10 away from it. Okay, so that's number one. Now both of these are part of the answer. Okay, let's do second one. We've got a lot of money ones here. $3 more than 4 times the cost of a pretzel. Ooh, I got a little bit more complicated. Yikes. Okay, so first off, let's identify numbers. That we can do, right? I've got a 3. I've got a 4. Okay. Now, let's look for words or phrase that means math. I see more than. More than also is a switcher phrase. Now, here's what you need to understand. It's everything after the more than is going to go in the front. Everything in front of the more than is going to go in the back. Okay? But wait. And that means to add. I see another word that tells me an operation, and that's times. That tells me to multiply. Now, the only thing I don't understand is what is the cost of a pretzel. So that's going to be our unknown. So we have X is the cost of a pretzel. And then we're going to translate. So 4 times the unknown. Oops, sorry, wrong color. Oh no, I'll keep it there. We're 4 times, oh, I keep changing, sorry, I'm not changing my color. Numbers are red. 4, and I dropped off my pretzy. 4 times, and here's the interesting thing. When I multiply a number and a variable, I'm going to just smush that variable right next to the number. So instead of me doing a multiplication symbol after the 4 and before the x, I just do that. That means 4 times x. Okay? And then we have the more than sign. And then we have the 3. And then that's our answer. Or answers, I should say. We got one more. 12 times the number of feet. Okay, so let's identify numbers. There's the easiest, 12. Words that mean to add, subtract, multiply, or divide, times. And then we've got this blip. I don't know what that is, the number of feet. So that's our unknown. I don't see any switcher phrases. Times is just straightforward. So we're going to define our unknown. So x equals the number of feet. So I just take all those words. Not feet, not number, the number of feet. Everything is accounted for. And then I have 12, and then times the number of feet. And again, we can just do that. And remember, we took those notes yesterday on how the different ways of writing multiplication, and when it comes to variables, this is the common way of doing it, with just a number in front of the variable. All right, guys, good luck with this, and we'll talk more about it on Monday. Bye now.